Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. My name is Wale Scott. Welcome on the show. We have some good news today and some news that are not really... one of the good news is the fact that I like it when men in power, men who are administrators, make promises, well, at the end of the day, eventually fulfill it. It always takes a while, but at least I like it when they eventually do it, you know. The Minister of Youth and Sports, Sunday Dare, has redeemed its financial pledge to Nigeria's athletes, the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. Dare had promised to financially reward the Paralympics athletes who excelled at the Games in Tokyo. Nigeria featured 22 athletes in 4 events at the Games. Now, we learned that some athletes who won gold were rewarded with $10,000 each, while those who won silver and bronze medals got $8,000 and $7,000 each. Nigeria won a total of 10 medals, 4 gold, 1 silver, and 5 bronze medals at the Games. Now, Team Nigeria captain at the Games, Lucy Ejike, also confirmed that they had been paid. The athletes took part in powerlifting, para-athletics, para-table tennis, and para-rowing in Tokyo. Now, there's nothing that can make your day much more than that. They treat these people like they are nobodies, despite the fact that they go there and still bring in medals. The able-bodied people only came home with 2 medals. These guys came home with 10. And despite all that, the sports minister promised he would redeem his pledge, and he has. Gold medal, $10,000. Not a massive amount, but for them, at this period in Nigeria, it's a sigh of relief, I'm sure.
Yes, $10,000. It can go a long way into investing in a future outside of sports, beyond the Olympics, because you know sports has a shelf life. At a certain point, you can no longer do the thing you're best at. You have to think about the after sports, post sports, retirement plan, and this is the kind of funding that can help them think about that. Many of these athletes will not be at the next Paralympics, and it's unfortunate that that it took this long, that the able-bodied who did less well
almost immediately
already got paid quickly. Perhaps.
And don't forget, okay, let me check. I don't know if Stanley's on the phone already. Stanley? Do I have Stanley Ikawo on the phone? Okay, not yet. But you know, we mentioned on the program that most of us spoke in different media houses, spoke about the fact that the able-bodied guys who won only 2 medals have already been rewarded. They've gone back to their base. Why is it taking so long for us?
Perhaps.
And then somebody must have heard.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, perhaps when you're sorting out your bills, the common notion is to pay the heavier bill first. But since the able-bodied got less medals, less bronze, less silver, less gold, their fee come due would have been less than the Paralympians. So perhaps it was easier to sort out the able-bodied because the money was there, knowing that there was a lot of things on the table. Now, this is me guessing, but I assume that as an administrator, you have to always prioritize and defer certain things until you're in a position to handle them.
Hopefully you're right, but well, all the same, thank you, Honorable Sports Minister. Well, you promised and eventually you did.
Delivered.
So whenever you did it doesn't matter anymore now. You've done it, and those guys will be very, very grateful.
Very happy.
Very grateful. Okay, now let's look at the Champions League results from matches played yesterday. And a last gasp goal from Leipzig. Give them a draw. Last gasp.
That game was always going to end in multiple goals. The possibility was that it could go either way. PSG struggled in the beginning because Leipzig seemed to have the ability to shock and awe these big teams. We saw how they played against Manchester City.
I was surprised that Real Madrid could actually get one on Shakhtar Donetsk.
Well, it should be an easy game for them, even as good as Shakhtar Donetsk is. Real Madrid are Real Madrid. It's unfortunate that for their pedigree to only have walked away with 2-1. Benzema was completely on his game in that match, and they should have had maybe 2 more goals to wrap it up. But
how good can these guys be? 2 games to go. Liverpool, they've already qualified. Ajax too have qualified despite losing. But Liverpool, somebody has to stop them.
Well, somebody will. Somebody always stops them. But what I find interesting about this year's Champions League is that Real Madrid, Liverpool have quickly pulled ahead with their rock and roll football. They've dominated from the very beginning, and we will see come final 16, come quarterfinals, if they are still there, and all the money should be that they will still be there, they will be going up against the likes of perhaps Chelsea, Manchester City. If Real Madrid are still available, no one really expects Barcelona to be challenging all the way to the quarter or semi-finals. So these are the teams that will likely have a chance to stop them. I suspect that when they go up against, if they go up against a Chelsea with the tactical setup that Tuchel has put in place, the match will slow Klopp's style down significantly. Whereas if they end up going up against a Real Madrid or a Manchester City, the game will be open, which will play into their hands.
Yeah, Manchester City took a stroll on the Belgian team, Club Brugge. The English clubs who are involved in Champions League, except for Manchester United, are doing very well.
Yes. At the very least, we all expect that 3 of the 4 Champions League, English Champions League should qualify to or up to the quarterfinals, and we might end up seeing a 3-way semi-finals for these English teams. What will be interesting is who fills out the rest. Bayern Munich are still playing ridiculously well. Manchester City, PSG, even when they struggle off and on, they didn't have Messi last night, and they might, by the time the quarterfinals rolls around, we might see a different Messi. We might see a Messi who is finally gelling into the squad. And definitely, by that time, we will see a lot of good football.
Well, they call themselves Spurs, and they shout all the time, "We are Spurs." Now, Antonio Conte says he hopes to bring attractive football to Tottenham after being appointed as the club's head coach. The Italian replaced Nuno Espirito Santo on Tuesday and has signed a contract which runs until the middle of 2023. The former Chelsea boss wants to implement a simple coaching philosophy in North London because the fans deserve to support a competitive team. Antonio Conte, the Robin Hood of club football. He comes like Robin Hood, brings all the spoils, the goodies, and just goes away. He never stays for too long.
You know, in this current era of the Premier League, with Manchester City so dominant, Liverpool so incredibly hard to play against, Chelsea, or as have been for the last 15 years or so, in and around the top of the table. Every season or so, they win something. Manchester United, the great Manchester United, are now the ones having problems. Even in the theatre of dreams, they are having it hard for them. Tottenham and Arsenal are not top 4 teams, and even now, they cannot say they are top 6 teams because West Ham are doing so well, Leicester City are doing so well. Aston Villa on a good day can be any of these teams. And we've seen that the likes of Brighton, Brentford, Wolves,
bringing their heads out.
Yes, you know? Can surprise anybody on any day, even away or at home. So if you're going to put a man like this, if you're going to put a man like this, build a project. The problem is Tottenham's ambitions is getting ahead of their ability to actually deliver them. Same thing with Arsenal. These are not the good old days when Tottenham broke in under Harry Redknapp and it seemed like they might start to be a regular top 4 team. If you want Tottenham to compete with the money bags, you have to steadily build a war chest.
Daniel Levy is not going to let that. I was going to ask that. Daniel Levy is not going to let that happen because we saw a Man City rejuvenated after they brought in all those players and spent so much money.
Yes.
Liverpool have bought the same players, but they bought them well at that point and then stuck with them. Consistency became key. Chelsea have bought in players. There's no way Conte can succeed at Tottenham without Levy allowing him to buy players.
Not as long as the definition of success is not the Premier League, it's not Champions League football, it's not winning the Champions League, then they can succeed. But when you have a Manchester City that, as stocked as they are last season, still had the money, the infantry, even though they had never done it before, broke their own spending record to bring in Grealish for £100 million. Chelsea spent over 90 million on Lukaku and possibly will go back into the summer to bring in Haaland or somebody else. Liverpool have built a first team that is so ridiculously talented that they don't even need to bring in anyone else for ridiculous 50 and above million pounds. But they're still being linked to the likes of Jude Bellingham, who will likely cost them as much as 50 million, even though he is a teenager. Tottenham cannot afford these players. And even if they could, Arsenal have way more money than them, and the competition is right there to see. Arsenal, if they can steal a player under their noses. I'll tell you a story. Ozil, when Ozil went to Arsenal, the deal was kept secret to the very last minute because they were suspicious that Manchester United would steal him. That is the level of pettiness that exists amongst the London clubs. And if Tottenham seeks to advance themselves, they must be ready to deal with the consequences, knowing fully well that the best way to go about this...
And at this point in time, if Arsenal, Tottenham do want to buy players, they have to be as secretive as Ozil was with Arsenal.
Yes. The fact is, if Tottenham wants to do well, win the Premier League long term, slow and steady wins the race.
I hope Conte will stay that long, if you ask me. He never stays too long. Now in the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers edged out the Houston Rockets 119-117 thanks to a huge collective game from its new Big Three. LeBron James scored 14 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter, while Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis put up 27 points each as the Lakers won back-to-back games against the Rockets. The rematch was a much tougher contest, with the Lakers trailing by 11 points in the third quarter before Kevin Porter Jr. missed a three-pointer to win it for Houston at the buzzer. The Lakers have won 3 straight games and 5 in their last 6 after a disappointing 0-2 start to the season and faced the Oklahoma City Thunder on Thursday. Welcome back. I think I have Stanley Ikawo on the phone. Stanley, welcome.
Yes, Wally, good morning.
We're talking about the sports minister who has finally redeemed his pledge to the Paralympians. He has given them their money eventually, although he's coming late, but at least it's coming.
Well, it's sad that in this part of the world, we don't celebrate our own. It's quite disappointing. These are Paralympians that want to take a thing to deliver what everybody in India has delivered. The sport ministry led by the sport minister, I think it should not only depend or dwell on the Nigerian Football Federation and of course the Nigerian Basketball Federation alone. There's a special issue as well. So I think the sport ministry should be more focused on, because whether you like it or not, these special athletes are the ones that are coming to deliver when it comes to representing Nigeria and the United States. But after that, it's better late than never. And then what the level of encouragement, remuneration, and of course the source of inspiration they get from the sport ministry. That is a good one for me.
Well, I think it's sad though, Stanley, because these people tend to make us proud despite all. They came back with 10 medals. Our able-bodied only went and came back with 2 medals and got their pledges almost immediately. These people are just getting their own how many weeks after the Olympics. This is not right. We must learn to get a different attitude to these our Paralympians.
Well, they all are now equal, but some are more superior than the other. What is the sport minister made of the time? All animals are equal, but some are more superior than the other. Now, if the sport ministry feels that the Paralympians should that allowance should be delayed, it's no brainer for me. It's total no for me. But then that's where we find ourselves. And the earlier we begin to understand that we must always treat everybody equally, what is observable, what is Mr. A, even not 100% should all be beginning to be like that. That's how you build a society of equity. So in this part of the world, like I said, the sport ministry are the major problem we have in our sporting sector.
So sad. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Stanley. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much, man.
Now, Mukail, honestly, you watched LA Lakers against and all the other matches I've watched, Golden State Warriors, nobody has any respect for anyone anymore. You know, those days you want to play LA Lakers, there's Michael Jordan in the squad, and you're like, hey, wala day, you know. You want to play Miami Heat, you want to. But now, it's a case of no one has respect for anyone anymore. They just go to the court and play basketball.
You know, I think the problem is that a lot of these big names that that are larger, that were larger than the sports, have gradually faded out.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have the great players like Anthony Davis, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, but unfortunately, no one is King James.
True.
No one is Kobe Bryant. Nobody ever will be. And James is closer to the end of his career than he is to the beginning of it. His best years are perhaps behind him, even though he's still a beast from that video you could see. Even as good as Curry is doing, he hasn't done it for long enough for us to say
be a legend.
To be a legend.
Yeah.
So ultimately, everyone now has a bunch of talented players, young players who are going to dominate for the next decade. Before LeBron James ever won his first ring, a lot of people thought he would ultimately become better than Michael Jordan. There's no one in the game right now that you can say will one day become better than Kobe Bryant, better than LeBron James, better than Michael Jordan. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Wow. Okay, on the show today, we're going to leave you with tennis. Of course, don't forget Italian youngster Yannick Sinner was knocked out of the French Masters by rising Spanish force Carlos Alcaraz. Now, completing his efforts to qualify for the season-ending ATP finals, which will be played between the top 8 men's singles players and doubles teams in Turin. Alcaraz's win over Sinner means Poland's Hurkacz is up to 8th position in the race to Turin, and if he beats American qualifier Tommy Paul in straight sets, Norway's Casper Ruud, seeded 6th in Paris, holds 7th spot in the race standings and will look to strengthen his position against qualifier Marcos Giron in the round of 16. Now, Russian seed Daniel Medvedev concluded a busy day with a tight 7-5, 6-4 defeat of Ilya Ivashika after Germany's Alexander Zverev eased into the last 16 with a win over Serbia's Dusan Lajovic. And in the battle between local favorites, Gael Monfils edged past French compatriot Adrian Manarino 2-6, 7-6, 4-6-2. Okay, Mukail, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Stanley Ikawo, for joining us on the show today. We'll leave you with Tennis Paris Masters. My name is Wally Scott. Like I always advise you at the end of every show, if not for anything, at least for your heart, do some sports.